Hi, I'm Roy Collin, and welcome to the show. I've got six podcasts, as you'll see behind me. The speaking podcast, where I'm talking to speakers, coaches, authors, and even marketers. I've got the meditation podcast, where I'm talking about meditation, breath work, yoga, chakras. I've got a load of meditations from 1 minute to 2 hours. I've got the Learn Polish podcast, and the episodes are about 5 to 10 minutes, and we deal with everyday topics like going to the dentist and things like that. The Awakening podcast is where I'm exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions. And I've had guests like Mickey Willis, Dr. Peter McCullough, David Icke, and Thomas Rentz. The Crypto podcast is where I'm exposing fraud and corruption in the crypto blockchain technology. So, about cryptos and NFTs, but also on the good things and how to invest safely. And finally, the Podfather, which you see there on my t-shirt, the podfather.me, is where I'm helping podcasters either to start a podcast or existing podcasters how to grow their audience. And most of the episodes are short, but they're good tips that will help you improve your show. I also have a store on all of my podcasts, so you can go in. There's some of my products and also some of the affiliates that I do, and that helps me with the show. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. And I'm also helping people start a podcast as well as doing a podcast tour. So you'll find everything on the link there. I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com. He's helping people with fear, doubt, and anxiety. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if he helps you. So be sure to check him out, danielpackard.com. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to comment on the social media and let us know what you think. You don't always have to agree, but as long as it's not abusive, the comment will stay up. Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. My guest today is based in Florida in the US. He's the CEO and owner of Build, Grow, Scale. He's an e-commerce business coach, and he's also a podcaster, which I always enjoy. His podcast is called Building a Brand. Please welcome Matthew Stafford.
Uh, Thank you.
So, I mentioned the different things you're doing, but I suppose let's kind of learn a little bit more about Matthew before we go into the business side of things. You might kind of tell me your journey.
Sure. I'd love to do that. I actually started very young in the entrepreneurial journey. When I was about 14 years old, I started a paper route and started delivering papers. And this will probably age me a little bit, but it was a paper, it was a weekly publication called True Grit, and I sold it for a quarter. And I had built up that paper route to about $60 a week. And in that process, I saved money for my first car and realized that when I was 16, I was able to buy my car and have some freedom. And so I realized through working and being my own boss that that to me meant freedom. And so when I was 18 and graduated, the guy that I had a job with at the time sold me his business. And so I literally went straight from graduating high school and having like work after work to owning my first business. And that worked really well. And I ended up selling it to two of the people that worked for me when I wanted to transition into doing something else. And so from there, it was basically like landscaping and doing, work around people's houses on the lakes because of where we were located in Holton Lake, Michigan. And from there, I got into the concrete business. I just actually really enjoyed the physical labor and the aspect of that. And we started doing driveways and sidewalks and designer concrete. And I built that all the way up until we were doing work for Walmarts and Home Depots and Lowe's, the big box stores. And that I did all the way up until about 2010. But during that 2008, when the housing crash happened, um, one of the general contractors that we worked for had a lot of other stuff in the housing market, and they ended up not paying us for one of the stores that we did, which is about 300 and some change $1,000. And so I realized at that point with what was happening, the risk out outweighed the reward and started scaling it back. And when I did that, I discovered doing more local stuff, which required me to go online and understand, how we would drive traffic to our websites. Because when we were doing the larger stuff, that was all word of mouth from contractors to other contractors being on bid lists, et cetera. And I had to learn how to use the internet in order to generate business. And once I started doing that, I got hooked on it. I was like, oh, wow, I can make a living that's not dependent on the weather. It's not dependent on, one big person being all of my business and the risk of that. And I just went all in, and within about 4 years, I was completely online and had sold all of the brick and mortar businesses that I was, involved in at the time.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. And it's nice to meet a fellow paper boy. I started at 11 and at
Yeah.
14 with the money I bought a lawnmower. Then when I was 18, I was buying and selling motorbikes and I think like because you come across not that many people that are kind of like that. But what I found is I'm not afraid of changing into any business because I think of that journey. It's like some people think they study something and that's the journey they must take, and they try to do everything with that. Whereas with me, if there's an opportunity, it's like you can hire the right people and you can do this good, but nothing. I mean, I've had about 20 companies at this stage now, and they're all totally different. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's a people business. You're just dealing with people.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you don't have a business problem, you have a people problem. Business problems are super easy to solve. Either you have a need and people want it or you don't. That's all that business is. The issue with business is it's an inner game. You have to deal with people. And so it's always shining a mirror on you as far as how your leadership shows up, how your people skills show up, how you are able to communicate a message and cast a vision, etc. So it's really not a business problem. It's a people problem. When you learn communication skills, which, like you said, you learn them very early on when you're just a little guy and you got to talk to people who are adults that are scary and present them with an opportunity to give you money for something. And so once you do that, yeah, the ideas are endless.
And with like the business, then, the build, is it just e-commerce or is it kind of work for like, say, coaches and things like that as well?
Yeah, so I will tell you early on, because we've been doing it now about 10 years. Early on, we literally focused just on e-commerce to really, really understand our message. And that is that traffic's not your problem. Most people think they need to buy more traffic. And when I had my own e-com brands and still do, but my early epiphany was on average, 2 to 3% of people convert that come to your website. And I thought that just doesn't make sense to me. They saw something or they Googled us and we came up and they came to our website and 97 or 98 out of 100 people leave without doing business with us. Somewhere we're not communicating the message right. And so everybody else that thought, oh, I need to get better at ads, and everybody's teaching ads. And I thought, like, well, if I get two more or three more of those 97 or 98 people that left to buy, I just doubled my business and didn't spend any more money. And so I started looking at what it would take to do that and understanding uh, not me trying to sell stuff to people, but me as a consumer looking for what I'm looking for to solve my problem and what answers I would need or what I would need to be able to look at in order to make a decision. And when I flipped that paradigm, I started going through my website and looking at it much differently. And when I started making the changes, we noticed it in sales immediately. And so, yeah, I just realized first, uh, that was my first dive into, hey, this is working really good for me. I want to get better at it. And I figured the very best way to get better at it was to share it with my friends and kind of teach what I was doing. and learning how to teach it, it actually made me even better at it. And that's kind of what perpetuated the journey of um, share your best stuff, help other people get the win, and that will create a business because people want you to, and when you give them really good information that changes their business, you introduce a new problem to them where everybody else is talking about the lower stuff. You're actually creating an issue for them, the chaos of abundance. Now all of a sudden they have new problems that they've never dealt with. And who else would they get it from other than the person that, actually taught them how to make more?
And like when you were kind of tapping into, like, say, the website and seeing, okay, there's a conversion at 2%. Was it a case of figuring out, okay, I'll just get their email and name and give them something free so that they aren't leaving? Or what kind of way did you actually gather that you were able to double it?
Yeah, so I actually forgot to follow through on your original question. My original, we did just work with e-commerce, so physical product sellers, to communicate our message and really learn that. So it was in essentially looking at analytics and understanding what people were doing on the website and then finding the friction points and also removing stuff that just cluttered it that nobody was using. And so by clarifying the message, we were getting more and more sales and we could go deeper and deeper into the data that we were getting. Um, and then this is a damaging admission. What I realized over the last 3, 4 years is when we only helped physical product sellers, 50% of the cost of their business is in the cost of goods. And so if I help them do an extra, you know, $10,000 a month, 5,000 of it is cost of goods, 2 or 3,000 is in their, overhead and all the rest. I've really actually only helped them make an extra 2 or 3 grand a month in that $10,000 worth of sales. So what they can pay me is so much less than compared to a digital funnel where you're selling information or, like you said, coaching or training, etc. And so, as I ventured into that world and started helping people with their digital sales, I realized, a 10% increase there was almost all profit. And so they could give me out of that 10,000, they could pay me a couple grand and they could have, 7, 8 grand. So it was a win-win. And so, yeah, I would say over the last couple of years, we've transitioned into a lot more helping people that have digital offerings and lead gen because what we do works on those websites just as much. People are people and they browse websites the same way. And we just realized that helping that audience was a way for us to grow and really kind of reap some of the benefits of what we were teaching.
And is it something that you kind of like what you said, like you're bringing in the extra work and you're taking like a split? Or is it something that
Yeah,
you want? Because there's so many out there. I mean, I'm working with a few different companies. There's so many out there that are promising bells and whistles and everything, and they want 3 grand, 6 grand, or whatever. And it's like they do not. There are so many scammers or just incompetent people out there. And to be honest with
100%.
you, like the way that I've done my business is I work on a percentage, and most people don't. And I'm doing good because of that. Because it's like if I get nothing, I get nothing. But I
Yeah,
work it on
that's
a
how we
way,
do it too.
and
Yep.
it's 100 times better because
Yeah.
like you win on the uplift as well. And they're never going to turn off the tap because if they do, like there'll be times they might think, oh, we're paying just when it gets to a high level, they'll think, oh, we can get somebody else to do it. And they'll come back crawling on their knees, like because they'll
Yeah.
realize that, it
Yeah.
ain't as easy, but once you know how to do it. So I'm assuming yeah, that's the way
Yeah,
you're doing
very
it.
much so. Yep, and agreed. I feel like that's the true win-win when both people have skin in the game. So if for whatever reason, they struggle with traffic for a little bit and that goes down, we take the hit with them. We don't have this flat fee where while they're trying to figure it out, they're losing. We take less and I feel that that's what a true partner does anyways. It's not a cash grab for us if they only do business with us for a couple months, we don't really make that much money. It's really the long-term relationships that have changed our business, and one creates the relationships of, I'm excited to get up and go to work each day. I don't want to work with people that I don't like. I don't want to work with people that don't want to work with me. And so, from that aspect, the long-term clients and relationships is actually the only thing that we're interested in at this point.
And because there's so much different types of marketing, there's organic marketing, there's paid, and there's like Google Analytics, and then sometimes they'll change it, like something that you're doing. Like for example, one of the guys I'm working with, anxiety, he was getting all his leads from that, the tap just turned off, and that can happen as well because
Yeah,
like I get a tax censored and everything. Today I had a video removed that's 3 years old. It's when yeah, from YouTube, and it's like you just don't know what way things are going to change.
sure.
So which like the way that so some is paid, is it that you get the client to pay for that, or you take that on board, but you like you make sure that that's included in your markup that you're
Yeah,
charging?
nope. So we do not do any paid media. We're 100% focused on the website,
Okay.
or the funnels or the pages, and then the back end marketing like email, etc. But no paid media at all. We always have whoever we've given lots of referrals to, companies that we've seen do really good jobs for our clients. And we work closely with them, but they're on the calls when we go through the data. They're on, we brainstorm together, and that's always given us much better results. Media is its own monster all by itself. And so we don't try to be all things to everybody. We literally just try to focus on one thing. And the more that we've said no to all the others, the better we've got at understanding the data, because that's the one thing that most people, they understand that it's really important, they need to do it, but they don't understand it, and so they very quickly give up on that portion. And so most of the things that they do is kind of just hoping and praying that it works and trying things out. We use the data, and so it gives us a lot more statistical um, probability that we're going to find wins and clean up things, because we're using the data in order to find the insights.
And what about a situation where somebody's maybe using, 8, 10 different kind of things? Like, because you're coming in and it's hard to track it. I mean, you can have a unique thing or set up a unique website that's so that it's known from you, but that can be an issue sometimes because, everyone is claiming, oh, it's my email marketing is this. And I know you've
Sure.
software, but how do you navigate that one?
We're very super transparent right in the very front. We say this is not a magic bullet. It's going to require a group effort and everybody on the same page. And so the very first thing, the first couple weeks of our engagement is 100% getting all the data accurate. You'd be shocked. Even huge companies like Mark Cuban's company that we worked for, Game Day Couture and Soho House, and then even Scientific America and Discovery Channel. Their metrics on these smaller properties that they owned, which are still huge to us, um, are just terrible. They don't really know their data. And so once we get that all dialed in and understand, we start looking at attribution. And attribution is always going to be difficult. So you kind of got to use like a blended average, but we do know what is bringing in and what isn't bringing in sales, and we're very deliberate about that. And the way that we do it is we use the Tag Manager and Google Analytics, and then typically a third piece of the tech stack will be something like Triple Whale or High Rose or whatever, the client's using in order to attribute or see the path that the customer traveled on to get there. For us, that's less important than it is for the owner. For us, we care exactly what someone does on the website from when they land until they give you money or they exit. And so that's the journey that we focus on.
And I mean, it's kind of out of your hands, but I assume you're tracking it because sometimes you could get qualified leads coming through, and it's just based on a few different businesses that because one was like a franchise consultancy firm where we were helping people that they'd buy a franchise. So I had access to a lot of people that were doing that. And the
Yeah,
conversion rate with people was massive. Like, some people were brilliant and some were terrible. And like if it involves like a call, I mean, it's different when it's kind of they're just going to see the product, they buy it. But when it
sure.
involves a call, is it something that you kind of give advice, or do you just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
rely,
No,
because
we
it mightn't be
definitely, yeah,
worth
we
your while
definitely
if they're
do.
so bad at it, like.
Yeah, the nice thing is, and this happened by accident. We get to work with a lot of really smart entrepreneurs because the majority of the ones that we partner with, they need to be doing about 250,000 a month for it to make sense to partner with us because we have five people that go on the website. We have one person that is basically QA, so they're bug checking any changes that we make, any changes that come up on a site. We have a front end dev, a back end dev. We have the guy that reads all the data, and then we have the guy that does the Google Analytics. And so that team, their entire focus is making sure that the data is accurate and finding things that we can do to optimize. And so, yeah, we are looking at which sources are driving good leads, what's the difference, what page, maybe we know like on the page, oh, if the average person scrolls three-quarters of the way before they convert, somewhere on that page, around three-quarters of the way down, we answered a question that a lot of people have in their mind that they need answered before they can sell or buy. So how do we get that up above the fold? And as we do that kind of stuff and look at that data, um, we know about 60% of people never scroll. So most of your conversions don't happen because you have the information on your website, but people never see it. And so, how do we get the things that work above the fold and done in a way that the journey is very simple instead of putting everything in front of them and making them go find it?
And with split testing then, because one, how long should you let it before the analytics, the information is correct? Because I see some people split testing and it's like they don't even give it a day. It should it be a week? And then do you
Yeah.
keep tweaking it, or do you get to a stage where you stop tweaking it? Because like, how do you know, can I actually improve this?
Yeah, so there's a diminishing return. I will give you a couple of things that we've realized that work really, really well over time. One, we never run a test for less than 7 days, even if they have a lot of traffic, because you need the entire week schedule to see that. Some people have sites that literally they sell better on Wednesday, Thursday. So, but the other days, you can get a lot of false positives. Think like, oh man, this test is crushing it the first couple days, and then as it evens out over the entire week, you go, now it's debatable. And so we make sure that we don't call things too early. Doing that, literally, you don't know what's actually winning, what's not winning. And so you could make a bunch of changes, and in the end, you have all these wins that you've pushed forward, but the site's not converting better. And we're like, how does that happen? Well, this might win, but in relation to farther on down the funnel, it doesn't win compared to this, or vice versa. And so, what we realize is when we find something that wins, instead of leaving and looking for something else to test, we actually put that element on the page in other places. And if the conversions keep going up, we know that that's truly a winning element. And we'll continue to add that and try to incorporate that on the site until we don't get any more lift from it. Those are the true wins, and we know that they work. And so instead of going up, yep, this one, let's find something else to test, we literally test the validity of it by putting it in other places and see if we keep getting more and more lift. And those are the wins that actually end up creating, life changing results.
Mm, right. And with like kind of the chatbots then, because everybody kind of realizes it's a bot, but sometimes they're pretending that it switches over and this is now Sandra, that's a and when you
Yeah.
kind of understand AI, you kind of and like how damaging is it when you're pretending that it's a real person and it's not.
Yeah, I think you can't regain trust. So if you try to act like I even see it in webinars. Oh, this is a live webinar when you know it's not. Instantly in your mind, you feel like, okay, I'm just going to be sold. And it might actually even be something that you want, but that's a new belief that they're going to have to knock down, that they're actually trustworthy. And I don't know how to do that if if you're willing to lie to your customers to get a few extra sales, um, people don't want to be sold. They want to be persuaded, or convinced that your idea is good or it's the best solution. And if you have to lie to me to do that, then how good really is it? And so I genuinely think um, business is built on trust. Part of the reason why people don't want to deal with big corporate companies who can a lot of times sell it for cheaper, people will spend more money to have the human interaction with someone that they feel like they actually get them.
Like a lot of the marketing, I mean, I studied like Glazer Kennedy and loads of
Yeah,
different. I'm constantly reading different books and
yeah,
Frank Kearns and all these different people.
yeah, yeah.
And
I'm in the middle of this right now, so
all right, excellent, yeah.
yeah,
And what you have is a lot of the time people create something that worked maybe 10 years ago and it's just regurgitated constantly without people even realizing because they think because somebody's doing that that's working. Like, for example, and I'd like to know your thoughts on these two things. One is like the time clock. Oh, 15 minutes. This offer is only valid for 15 minutes. And the other is the pricing because like I know it worked at one stage, $97 instead of 100 or 47. What's your thoughts on the two of them?
yeah. The only time that a timer works is if it's true scarcity. Um, and when you're selling digital products, you need to give them a reason why it ends. Maybe there's a limit in how many people that you can serve. But when they decide to come back the next day or 2 days later and the time clock is reset and it's just another thing, again, you've already lost the trust of the customer. And definitely in an e-commerce setting, it worked really well early on, and now it just feels gimmicky. It feels very drop shippy, and so in the physical product space, the timers don't work. We've not found the timers increase anything. If anything, it hurts conversions. So people don't want to be forced to do it, and so when you're forcing them, it's basically that push versus pull marketing or power versus force, and it just doesn't work with the consumers. People have too many choices now. There's enough people in every market selling things that they're not forced to buy it from you because you're the only one.
With kind of the email then sequencing because it's all kind of related and
Yeah,
the likes of Grant Cardone and London Real they bombard you that it's not just bad enough one email a day, sometimes you're getting three to five. And with
yeah,
London Real, like I'm so annoyed with them because you unsubscribe, like they have info at London Real and then they have another one at crypto at London Real, and they just keep sending you and like
yeah,
it is so bad to be doing that. So, but like, I
yeah,
mean, with me, what I do, and it seems to work, I do two to three with one of the companies that I'm done because I think one a week isn't enough, and it seems to work. I kind of played around with, but
yeah,
I just like to know your thoughts on what way
yeah.
works best.
Yeah, so I think audiences are contextual. If you're providing good content, and it's not just sell, 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 sale, last chance, then more power to you. I do know that the brands that we work with that do the very best, they do email every day. They don't email their entire list every day. They email their most engaged audience every day. The people that are less engaged get like twice a week, and the people that are less engaged get like once a week, and the people that are very low engaged get like once a month. And then they are constantly, they have controls in there that constantly filter that out and adjust. So if you've sent 6 emails and they've never opened it over the last 90 days, they're removed because all of that hurts your sendability and deliverability. Uh, if someone gives you their email, that's a very intimate thing. If you're allowed to be in their inbox, I feel that most people disrespect the fact that they gave you that and assume that, oh, because you gave me that, that gives me the ability to do whatever I want. And from that place, they actually destroy their credibility or trust. And after a while, that list just doesn't respond the way that it used to. compared to people that nurture their list, provide value. They're not selling. Um, there's always an opportunity to buy. What we've noticed is a lot of times the content emails will drive quite a bit of sales, even though there was no link to buy, no nothing. And it was literally because the people are like, oh, wow, that's really great. And then they just wanted to go look at their site and they buy. Uh, and so seeing that type of data tells me that the last chance, summer sale, every single time, basically what you're doing is you're conditioning your customers to only listen to you when you have reduced prices instead of because they actually like doing business with you or they love your products.
Brilliant. With like the advice that you gave there is like after 3 months to just remove them because a lot of people don't. It's kind of like bragging rights and trying to say, "Oh, I have an email list of 30,000," and the reality is, you might have, like 20% that's actually opening, and the rest have not
Right.
done nothing. And plus the cost element as well, because like some of these providers, it's based on the numbers that you're doing, so you're actually costing
Yeah.
yourself. So
Yeah.
curious with because there's so many of them. Like MailChimp is probably one of the well-known, and then there's ConvertKit. But I've come across ones recently. We were going to do a switch on one, and I think send in mail. It was like up to 10,000, but it was like a lifetime thing. But what I was advised is because the system that they use, it'll just go straight to spam. So with your experience, it just like, is that correct? And
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. How you manage your deliverability matters a lot. The ISPs, if you have a list of 100,000, and you blast the entire list and you get no communication back, they know that's promotional. They don't consider that a conversation. The people that segment their list into smaller segments and send things that get responses, that indicates it's a conversation. And so that helps your deliverability. If all you ever do is send, 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 you send thousands of emails, nobody responds, they know that those are promotional. And so what they'll do is when you say, "Oh, I'm going to send my whole list our sale," um, if you have 100,000 people on your list, they'll send a segment like 15, 18, 20,000 people, look at the numbers of what's happening, and they might not ever send the other 80,000 on your list, even though it shows you sent 100,000 and you only had this result. They actually only delivered 20,000. The metrics were bad. They never sent the other 80. So if you have smaller lists that have good engagement, when you send that, instead of them throttling that down, they'll send the whole list because it has good engagement with it. And so we always do things early on in the process, ask questions, get opinions. We actually even use a service called Pick Snippets that puts the address that they filled in for the product and say, "Hey, we're getting ready to ship. Is this the correct address?" And it'll stop misships, but everybody responds to that. So now all of a sudden, early on in the sales cycle, these people are already conditioned to go ahead and hit respond and do that. And what does that do? That tells the ISP, "Oh, this sender has engagement with their audience. It's not just promotional." And so when you do that, that helps your deliverability too. So yeah, that matters a lot. The numbers that they give you are very inaccurate 99% of the time. And you have to manage some really big lists. I was fortunate enough to work on BlackFriday.com for about 4 years, and we would send almost 5 million emails a day. And so we spent close to 100 grand a month just knowing exactly how many would land in Yahoo, how many land in AOL, how many land in Gmail, et cetera, and figuring that out in order to do that. So we got to see what the ISPs actually do compared to what people think they do.
And I mean, it's when the numbers build up, it gets very expensive. And
Yeah.
it's okay if you've got a high margin, but sometimes people have tiny margins. Is
Yeah.
it possible or more cost effective to develop your own CRM, or is it just that it's kind of controlled that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I always think minimum viable product, and you building something like that and then having to worry about all those other factors of deliverability and all the, laws and regulations and all of that. It is a full-time job to be to be in charge of an email list and do a really good job with it. So yeah, I don't think that's ever a winning solution, not for us at least.
Okay. I've it written down here now, and I'm just curious, but I'm not sure where it comes into emotional intelligence and trauma. That's something, what's that kind of connected with?
Yeah, so I will tell you from my own experience, there's been several times where I built up the business and got it to a level where I was no longer comfortable, and I'd find a way to um, actually get rid of the success. And so when that happened multiple times, I started going, well, I'm the common denominator here, what's going on? And I came from a, pretty traumatic childhood for sure, and had developed a lot of unhealthy stories. And the more that I shared that with other entrepreneurs which is basically the community that I, spend time with, I realized a lot of other entrepreneurs come from that background too. And so just the way my brain works of always looking at things from an analytical standpoint, I'm like, oh, well, why is the overwhelming majority of entrepreneurs that I talk to have this trauma in their background? And I thought, you know, really the definition of trauma is a loss of control, feeling of loss of control. And if you look at business, when are you actually in control? Almost never, even a good business, there's always things going on, things changing, ways that you need to adapt. And so you're always inside of a traumatic environment. And then I thought, like, a lot of our employees, what they look at what we do every day and they're like, no way. I wouldn't want to do what you do for any reason at 5 o'clock. I want to check out, go home, not think about work, come back the next morning and do my thing, where the entrepreneur can't do that. And so my theory is that they developed some sort of a coping mechanism to function inside of trauma, early on, and now they can be in business and function inside of that or have a coping mechanism that allows them to do that. It's not always healthy. There's healthy ones and unhealthy ones, and I think that that's goes back to what we kind of alluded to early on is that, business is really a people game. It's an inner game, and I think the reason for that is uh, those coping mechanisms, when we discover them, figure out how to dissolve that or have a new, healthier one, the businesses explode. And so, yeah, I think emotional intelligence has a huge factor in determining one, how successful and being able to keep that success long term. Um, Comes down to you actually really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Most business owners early on are building something in order to feel better about themselves. Once they feel better about themselves, what they build is totally different and many times more successful.
No, excellent. So with the coaching then, because I mean, you mentioned I think it's like 250,000 and monthly is what they'd need to kind of have your service because there's a team of five or
Yeah.
whatever. Is the
Yeah.
coaching then for the kind of smaller players that could eventually get to that, and you're able to apply? I mean, you're after sharing fantastic information today on this show, but is it kind of like the people that want to kind of up their game is who you're coaching?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And then, yeah, so there's different levels to that. And I always just explain to people, if you think about it, how does the CEO, um, hire a coach and the whole company does better? Well, it's because typically, the CEO or the owner is the one that's the bottleneck in the business. His beliefs keep the business stuck. And so I always tell people, the most loving thing I can do for you is to not believe your story, because your story is what's keeping you stuck. And so my job isn't to give you advice or answers, it's to ask you questions so that you can find out what's true for yourself. And when you figure that out, then your business can explode. And so, yeah, smaller companies for sure will start at a lower level, more in a group setting. And then as they do better, they can graduate up to where they deal with us one on one.
Brilliant. And your podcast, Building a Brand, and there's like, you might just kind of tell people what, I mean, I'm assuming it's kind of like sections of what we've discussed, but going into more
Yeah,
detail.
it's basically I think that entrepreneurs and their stories that they tell of their journey of how they built the brand gives people a lot of opportunity in order to discover for themselves and see an example of other people that are going through the same things. Many times our mind keeps us trapped in like, oh, I'm the only one that's dealing with this. It must be easy for them. And so when you see the stories and hear the journeys of the other people and understand that you're just like them, it's just a matter of, sticking to the path. I think that that's one of the greatest gifts that we can give people who are trying to make their dent in the world.
Excellent. AI, finally, AI is actually, you know, most people are trying their arm at it, and they're, the ChatGPT 4 now, and there's the Gemini. And like, if people don't realize, but it's like a Google search. They think it's gold and they'll go with it, or they'll ask Alexa. And because Alexa says it, they're doing a record on TikTok, assuming it's true. And I have done a test recently with the Gemini one, which is the Google one. And every single thing I asked it, which I'm 100% sure of, it was giving me different answers, and it can be dangerous. So, like, there's people that are kind of trying to use the AI to kind of navigate with their business. So, just kind of, what's your kind of thought on how people are incorporating AI?
Yeah, so I'm for sure an early adopter. So I've been very interested and really enjoy it. My opinion is it doesn't replace people yet. My opinion is if someone is really good at using it, it's a really good way to turn a good employee into a great employee. It makes them more efficient. It gives them more critical thinking skills. It reminds them of things that, can help them do their job better. I don't think that people who have went totally to AI, maybe in certain niches that works, but there's still a human element that's needed in a lot of the stuff that we do. And so I don't think it replaces people. I think that it makes them more efficient and creates a better employee.
Okay, excellent. Listen, not you. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and for those that it's have a business or whatever, they'll realize what you shared as goals. You might let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, the easiest way is Matt at buildgrowscale.com. And so if you email me there, I'm happy to respond, or you can actually go to our website, which is buildgrowscale.com. And there's ways to get a hold of us or schedule a call, look at, get free content, et cetera there.
Okay, and I'll make sure I put the links both in the audio and the video. And just on that one, because you gave your email, and usually I put a bracket because I get so much spam. Is there ways of actually stopping that by, because it's nice to have your email because people like to be able to reach out, and not everyone can understand when you put a bracket on it. Is there ways to stop these spammers? Because there's people selling sites for like $50 and it'll email like a million people. Is there ways to stop that?
I've been pretty fortunate to not have a big deal, not really struggle with that. And I don't know if it's just because uh, I'm not always trying to promote something. I'm trying to provide value. And so the people that actually reach out to me are doing it for a reason. The other thing is Gmail has really gotten really good at giving us the control. And excuse me, even though it's a custom domain, I can put a block on things and create filters, and I have an assistant that does a really good job with that. And so, I would say, maybe I get one a day, maybe, if that. Uh, Sometimes I'll get two or three in one day and then none for a week. And so it's never really been an issue for me. But
Okay.
I could see where it could be, but I just don't have that trouble.
Okay, okay. And I think
Yeah.
maybe me damage was done by sending out the wrong emails and not giving content, because it's all a learning journey. So maybe
Sure,
hence
sure.
why I get things. So
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you very much, Matthew. I'll make sure I put the links both in the audio and the video.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
No problem. So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. Be sure to comment on what we discussed. And as long as it's not abusive, it stays. Until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you'll find my 6 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster. And also, if you'd like to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, you'll find the information on that or on the QR code that's there. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends because it really helps. And also, I'd like to thank DanielPackard.com, helping people with fear, doubt, and anxiety. He's got a 90% success rate and he's only charging if he helps you. So be sure to check him out and you get a free call to discuss everything. Until next week, take care.